You have 1 hour to get the money, sweetheart. 1 hour, or your pretty face won't be so pretty anymore. The man's breath reeked of cigarettes and stale beer as he leaned over the kitchen counter, his meaty hand wrapped around Claire's wrist. She could feel his fingers pressing into her skin hard enough to leave bruises. Again. Always more bruises. "Rick, please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm working double shifts. I'm doing everything I can." "Everything you can?" He laughed, a cruel sound that made her stomach turn. "Everything you can would be having my money already. Your bastard brother stole from me, and now you're going to pay it back. $40,000, Claire. You think I'm joking?" She wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this situation. Not in this life. 2 months ago, her brother Danny had gotten himself into trouble with the wrong people, borrowed money from a local loan shark to cover gambling debts, and then disappeared. Vanished into thin air, leaving Claire holding the bag. Rick had shown up at her apartment 3 weeks ago with photos, documents, and a smile that promised violence. The debt transferred to family, he'd explained. That's how it worked. And if she didn't pay, well, there were other ways she could work it off. The way he'd looked at her when he said it made her skin crawl. "I understand," she managed, pulling her wrist free. 1 hour. Rick straightened, adjusting his leather jacket. "Smart girl. I'll be at Romano's tonight. You know the place?" Her blood went cold. "The restaurant?" "That fancy Italian joint on 5th. I'm meeting some associates there at 9. You bring me an envelope with at least 10 grand as a down payment, and we'll talk about a payment plan. You don't show, or you show empty-handed." He reached out and traced a finger down her cheek. She forced herself not to flinch. "Well, let's just say you'll regret it." The moment he left, Claire collapsed against the counter, her whole body shaking. $10,000. She had $800 in her savings account. She'd been working at Mel's Diner for 3 years, barely making ends meet as it was. There was no way, no possible way to get that kind of money in an hour. She looked at the clock. 7:45. Her phone buzzed. Another text from an unknown number. "Time's ticking, sweetheart. Don't disappoint me." Claire's mind raced. She couldn't run. Rick had made it clear he knew where she worked, where she lived, where her mother was in the nursing home upstate. He'd shown her the photos. This wasn't just about her anymore. And then an idea formed. A terrible, desperate idea. She grabbed her purse and keys, her hands still trembling. Romano's. He'd be at Romano's at 9. She knew the place, knew they were always looking for extra servers on Friday nights because they got slammed with the dinner rush. She'd applied there once, years ago, but they'd said she didn't have enough upscale experience. But Gina worked there. Gina, her friend from high school who'd stayed in touch. Gina, who owed her a favor after Claire had let her crash at her apartment for 2 months last year. The drive across town felt like it took forever, and no time at all. Claire's mind kept spinning through scenarios, each one worse than the last. What was she going to do? Warn Rick's associates that he was dangerous? Try to somehow stop the meeting? She didn't even know. She just knew she had to do something. Romano's occupied a corner building in the historic district, all red brick and elegant lighting. Through the tall windows, Claire could see well-dressed diners at white-clothed tables, candlelight flickering. She felt sick. The back entrance was propped open for deliveries. Claire slipped through, pulling out her phone to text Gina. Before she could hit send, someone grabbed her elbow. "Claire, what are you doing here?" Gina stood in front of her in the standard Romano's server uniform. Crisp white shirt, black slacks, burgundy apron. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, her expression confused. "Gina, thank God. I need your help. I need—" Claire's voice broke. "I need to work tonight. Just tonight. Please." "What?" "Claire, you can't just walk in and— Please." The desperation in her voice must have registered because Gina's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "What's wrong? What happened?" Claire couldn't explain it all. There wasn't time. "I'm in trouble. Bad trouble. There's someone coming here tonight, and I need to be here. I need to see something. Please, Gina. I'll explain everything later, I promise. Gina stared at her for a long moment, then glanced back toward the kitchen. We're short-staffed tonight anyway. Marcus just called in sick. But Claire, if this is something dangerous, it's not. I just need to be here. Please. Another pause. Then Gina nodded. Okay, but you're going to tell me everything later. Come on, there's a spare uniform in the back. 5 minutes later, Claire was dressed in the crisp white shirt and black slacks, her own hair pulled back, hands shaking as she tied the burgundy apron. Gina had vouched for her to the floor manager, some guy named Tony who was too stressed about the Friday rush to ask many questions. He'd barely looked at her before nodding and pointing her to Section 3. Tables 12 through 18, he'd said. Keep the water glasses filled. Smile. Don't screw up. We've got some VIPs coming in tonight. VIPs. Claire's stomach churned. The dining room was beautiful, all warm lighting and exposed brick walls, soft jazz playing in the background. Under any other circumstances, Claire would have been thrilled to work in a place like this. Now every shadow looked threatening. She scanned the room as she emerged from the back with a water pitcher. 8:15. Rick wasn't here yet. She had time to figure out what she was going to do. Except she had no idea what she was going to do. Table 14 needed water. She approached with her best customer service smile, trying to keep her hands steady. An older couple, anniversary dinner probably. She filled their glasses, took their drink orders, moved to the next table. This was insane. What was her plan? Confront Rick in the middle of the restaurant? Cause a scene? Get herself fired and beaten up in the same night? Claire. Gina appeared at her elbow, her voice low. That VIP table, number 17. They just arrived. Claire followed her gaze to a corner booth, partially secluded by an ornamental screen. She could see movement, several men settling in, but couldn't make out faces yet. Why are you telling me? She whispered back. Because that's not your section. But Tony wants all hands on deck. He's asking everyone to help. Claire, these guys... Gina's expression was strange, somewhere between nervous and awed. I've heard things. Romano's gets a certain clientele sometimes. The kind you don't ask questions about. Just be polite, be professional, and don't stare at the tattoos. Tattoos. Before Claire could respond, Tony appeared, snapping his fingers at both of them. Ladies, the VIP booth. 2 bottles of the Barolo, the good one. Menus, water, the works. Now. Claire's heart hammered as she and Gina moved toward the booth. Through the decorative screen, she could see them more clearly now. 4 men, all in expensive suits, but her attention locked on one in particular. He sat at the back of the booth, facing out toward the restaurant. Dark hair swept back from his face, strong jawline, eyes so blue they were visible even from a distance. He was younger than she expected, maybe early 30s, and handsome in a way that seemed almost dangerous. As he shifted, his jacket fell open slightly, revealing tattoos that crept up his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. When he looked up, his gaze met hers directly, and Claire felt the impact like a physical thing. Those eyes were ice cold, calculating, missing nothing. She forced herself to look away, to focus on the table, on being professional. Good evening, gentlemen, Gina said smoothly, setting down menus. Welcome to Romano's. Can I start you off with something to drink? Claire poured water, keeping her eyes down, her hands somehow steady despite the terror coursing through her. These were the associates. Rick's associates. Which meant Rick would be here soon. The man with the blue eyes spoke, his voice deep and smooth. The Barolo, 2 bottles. And bring appetizers. The chef's selection. Of course, Mr. Callahan, Gina said. Callahan. Claire filed the name away, though she wasn't sure why it mattered. As they turned to leave, Callahan spoke again. You. Claire froze. Slowly, she turned back. He was looking directly at her. Yes, sir? His eyes moved over her face, analytical, as if he was filing away every detail. You're new. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes, sir. First night. He nodded once, dismissively, and turned back to his companions. Claire and Gina retreated. "Holy hell," Gina breathed once they were safely back at the service station. "Do you know who that was?" "Callahan, you said?" "Marcus Callahan. Claire, he basically runs half this city. Construction, real estate, import-export. And that's just the legal stuff everyone knows about." Gina's voice dropped even lower. "My cousin dated a guy who worked in one of Callahan's warehouses. The stories he told..." "Claire, these aren't people you mess with." The words landed like stones in her stomach. She'd known Rick was involved with bad people, but this? This was so far beyond her understanding of how the world worked. "What kind of stories?" she asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "The kind where people who cross him disappear. The kind where entire rival operations get shut down overnight. He's not just some street thug, Claire. He's the real deal. Old school organization, family connections, the whole thing." Gina studied her face. "This is about your trouble, isn't it? Please tell me you're not mixed up with these people." Claire didn't know how to answer. "It's complicated." "Uncomplicated. Get out of here. Go home. Whatever you're thinking of doing, don't." But Claire couldn't leave, because at 8:50, Rick walked through the front door. He'd cleaned himself up for the meeting, she noted distantly. Nice jacket, button-down shirt, his hair combed back. He looked almost respectable if you didn't know what was underneath. When his eyes swept the room and landed on her, his expression shifted to surprise, then to something uglier. He started toward her. "Claire," Gina hissed. "Who is that?" "That's my problem," Claire said softly. Rick reached her in a few strides, his hand clamping on her arm. To anyone watching, it might have looked friendly. Claire felt his fingers digging in, bruising. Well, he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Looks like you're working after all. Where's my money, sweetheart?" "I don't have it. Rick, please, I just need more time. Time's up. We had a deal." His grip tightened. "You and I are going to take a walk outside and discuss your payment options." "I'm working. I don't care if you're meeting with the president. We're leaving. Now." "Is there a problem here?" The voice came from behind Rick, and Claire felt him stiffen. Both of them turned to find Marcus Callahan standing there, his hands in his pockets, his expression mildly curious. Up close, he was even more imposing. Tall, broad-shouldered, with those startling blue eyes that seemed to see everything. Rick released her arm immediately, his demeanor changing. "Mr. Callahan, no problem at all. Just talking to a friend." Didn't look friendly. Callahan's gaze shifted to Claire, taking in her server uniform, her pale face, the way she was cradling her arm. "You work here?" "Yes, sir. I'm sorry for the disturbance." "You're not disturbing me. He is." Callahan looked back at Rick. "You have business with my server?" The way he said "my server" made it sound like a claim, like ownership. Rick heard it too. He took a step back. "Just a personal matter. We're old friends." "That true?" Callahan asked Claire. Every instinct screamed at her to just agree, to nod and smile, and diffuse the situation. But something in those blue eyes made her pause. There was danger there. Yes, but there was also something else. An odd sort of protection? "No, sir," she heard herself say. "We're not friends." The temperature in the immediate area seemed to drop 10 degrees. Callahan's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, became more dangerous. "Then I suggest you leave," he said to Rick, "before I have you removed." Rick's face reddened, anger flashing in his eyes. But he wasn't stupid enough to push it. Not here. Not with Callahan. "This isn't over," he said to Claire, his voice barely above a whisper. Then, louder, to Callahan, "Have a good evening, sir." He left, but Claire knew it was temporary. He'd be waiting. Outside, or at her apartment, or somewhere else. And he'd be angry. "You're shaking." Claire looked up to find Callahan still standing there, his expression unreadable. She tried to steady herself, to pull together some semblance of professionalism. "I'm fine. Thank you for your help. I should get back to work." "What's your name?" "Claire. Claire Morrison." "Well, Claire Morrison, you're a terrible liar." He studied her for another moment, then nodded toward his booth. "My table needs wine. I'd prefer you bring it." It wasn't a request. Claire nodded mutely and headed for the wine cabinet with shaking hands. Gina intercepted her halfway there. What the hell was that? Who was that guy? And why did Marcus Callahan just defend you like you're one of his people? "I don't know," Claire said honestly. "I don't know any of this." She retrieved the Barolo with Gina's help, her mind spinning. Rick would be furious. She'd embarrassed him in front of Callahan. Whatever consequences she'd been facing before just got exponentially worse. Unless... An insane thought occurred to her as she approached the VIP booth with the wine. These were dangerous men. Powerful men. Rick was terrified of them. That much had been obvious. What if... No, that was crazy. She couldn't. Could she? Callahan watched her approach, his expression giving nothing away. The other 3 men at the table had gone quiet, their attention on her as well. She felt like a butterfly pinned under glass. "Your wine, sir," she said, presenting the bottle. "Open it." Her hands shook slightly as she used the corkscrew, but she managed without spilling. Years of diner work had made her decent with bottles. She poured a taste into Callahan's glass first. He sipped, nodded. "It's good. Pour for everyone." She worked her way around the table, filling glasses, hyper-aware of every movement, every breath. When she finished, she started to step back. "The man who was bothering you," Callahan said, his tone conversational. "You owe him money?" Claire froze. The other men at the table were watching with interest now. It's complicated." "I'm sure it is. How much?" "Sir, I really shouldn't—" "How much?" The command in his voice left no room for deflection. Claire swallowed hard. $40,000. Someone whistled low. One of the other men chuckled. Callahan's expression remained neutral. "That's a significant debt for a waitress." "It's not my debt. It's my brother's. He borrowed from that man and then disappeared. Now it's..." She trailed off. Why was she telling him this? "I'm sorry. This isn't appropriate. I should go." "You should," he agreed. "But you won't. You came here tonight for a reason. You took a job at a restaurant where you knew your creditor would be meeting with people like me. That's not coincidence. That's desperation." He was right. God help her. He was right. "What were you planning?" he continued. "Were you going to warn us that he's dangerous? Try to turn us against him? Or were you hoping for something else?" Claire's throat felt tight. "I don't know. I didn't know what else to do. He's going to hurt me if I don't pay, and I can't pay. I don't have anything." The silence that followed felt heavy. Then Callahan leaned back in his seat, studying her with those ice-blue eyes. "You have information," he said finally. "You know Rick Delano. You know his business, his contacts. That's worth something. I don't know anything. I've only dealt with him for 3 weeks. But you know where he operates from, where he keeps his records, who else he's extorting." Callahan's lips curved slightly, though it wasn't quite a smile. "Rick Delano is a roach who's been operating in my city without paying proper respect. I've been meaning to have a conversation with him about that. You could make that conversation much easier." Something cold slithered down Claire's spine. This was it. The devil's bargain. The moment where she crossed a line she could never uncross. "And if I help you," she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, "what happens to my debt?" "Your debt becomes irrelevant. Delano's collection days would be over." "You'd kill him." "I didn't say that." Callahan's expression remained neutral. "But he would no longer be your problem. And you would be under my protection. No one touches my people." My people. There it was again, that sense of claim. Claire's hands were shaking again. She clasped them together, trying to think through the terror fogging her brain. This was insane. She'd be helping a crime boss take down another criminal. She'd be involving herself in something dark and dangerous and probably illegal. But the alternative was Rick. Was being hurt, or worse. Was watching her mother's nursing home payments stop coming. Was living in constant fear. I need to think about it, she managed. Callahan reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. Plain white, just a phone number in black ink. Nothing else. You have until closing time tonight, he said. After that, the offer expires, and you're on your own with Delano. Claire took the card with numb fingers. Now go, Callahan said, dismissing her. We have business to discuss. The rest of the dinner shift passed in a blur. Claire moved through her tables on autopilot, smiling and taking orders and pouring drinks while her mind raced in circles. The card felt like it was burning a hole in her pocket. She was a good person. She went to church sometimes. She'd never even gotten a speeding ticket. And now she was considering helping a mafia boss take down a loan shark. But Rick's face kept appearing in her mind. The way he'd looked at her. The threats. The bruises already forming on her arm. At 10:30 closing time, Tony dismissed the staff. Claire changed back into her regular clothes in the locker room, moving slowly, delaying the inevitable decision. Gina found her as she was gathering her things. Are you going to tell me what's going on? Claire looked at her friend, this kind person who'd helped her without asking too many questions. She wanted to explain everything. But how could she drag Gina into this? I'm in trouble, she said finally. Bad trouble. But I think I found a way out. Does it involve Marcus Callahan? Claire's silence was answer enough. Oh God, Claire. No. Whatever you're thinking, no. You don't make deals with men like that. They own you afterward. Forever. Rick Delano is going to hurt me if I don't pay him $40,000 I don't have. What would you do? Gina opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. There has to be another way. The police would do what? Rick hasn't technically done anything yet except make threats. And even if they arrested him, his people would still come after me for the debt. You said it yourself. These organizations don't forget. Claire zipped up her purse. At least with Callahan, I'd have protection. At what cost? That was the question, wasn't it? Claire hugged Gina goodbye and walked out into the night. The parking lot was mostly empty now, just a few cars left. She pulled out her keys, then paused. Rick was leaning against her car. Her heart stopped. Hey there, sweetheart, he said, pushing off and walking toward her. We need to talk about what happened in there. Claire backed up instinctively. Her hand went to her pocket, closing around the business card. You made me look bad in front of important people, Rick continued. That's not okay. I think you need to learn some respect. He was close enough now that she could smell the alcohol on his breath. He'd been drinking since he left the restaurant. His eyes were unfocused, angry. Rick, please, please. You're begging now. That's good. That's a start. He reached for her, his hand going to her throat. Claire ran. She didn't think, just turned and sprinted back toward the restaurant. Behind her, she heard Rick curse and give chase. Her heart hammered so hard, she thought it might burst. The back entrance. If she could just get to the back entrance. A hand caught her hair, yanking her backward. Claire screamed, stumbling. Rick's face loomed over her, twisted with rage. You don't run from me, he snarled, and then suddenly, he wasn't there anymore. It took Claire's shocked brain a moment to process what happened. 1 second Rick was grabbing her. The next, he was on the ground 10 feet away, and Marcus Callahan was standing between them. I believe the lady said please, Callahan said, his voice deadly calm. That usually means no. Rick scrambled to his feet, swaying. This is none of your business, Callahan. You're in my parking lot threatening my server. That makes it my business. 2 other men emerged from the shadows. Claire recognized them from the dinner table. They moved to flank Rick, their intentions clear. Rick's face went pale as he realized his situation. Look, I don't want any trouble. She owes me money, that's all. I'm just collecting what's mine." "She doesn't owe you anything," Callahan said. "Not anymore. The debt is canceled. You're done operating in this city. If I see you again, if I hear you've so much as looked at Claire Morrison wrong, they'll never find enough of you to bury." The cold certainty in his voice made Claire's blood run cold. This wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Rick looked between Callahan and his men, and whatever he saw there made him take a step back. "You can't just—" "I can. I am. Leave. Now." Rick left, practically running to his car. The tires squealed as he peeled out of the parking lot. The silence that followed felt surreal. Claire stood there shaking, unable to quite believe what had just happened. Callahan turned to face her, and his expression softened slightly. "Are you hurt?" "No, thank you. How did you—" "I was having a cigarette." He gestured to a side door. "Saw him waiting by your car. Figured he might try something stupid." His men had disappeared back into the shadows as quietly as they'd come. It was just the two of them now in the dim parking lot. "The debt," Claire said. "You said it's canceled, but we didn't agree to anything. Consider it a courtesy. No one threatens my people. But I'm not your people. I just started working here tonight, and I wasn't even really hired properly. You are now." Callahan pulled out his phone, tapped something, then held it up to show her. "I just bought Romano's, as of 30 seconds ago, pending the usual paperwork, which makes you officially my employee, which makes you mine to protect." Claire's head spun. "You bought what? Why?" "Because I felt like it, and because I don't like men who hurt women over debts they didn't incur." He pocketed the phone. "You're safe now, Claire. Rick Delano won't bother you again. Neither will anyone else he works with. I'll make sure of that." "I don't understand. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Callahan stepped closer. In the parking lot lights, his eyes were impossibly blue, intense in a way that made her breath catch. "Maybe I want to know you," he said softly. "You walked into danger tonight to try to protect yourself. That takes courage, or desperation, or both. Either way, I respect it." He paused. "And maybe I'm tired of men like Delano thinking they can operate in my city without consequences. So this is business." "Everything is business, Claire, but that doesn't mean it can't be something else, too." The way he looked at her made her skin flush. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was looking at her like she mattered. Like she was someone worth protecting, worth knowing. It should have terrified her. Maybe it did. But underneath the terror was something else. Something that felt dangerously like attraction. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you go home. Get some sleep. Come back Monday for your real first shift. I'll have Tony put you on the schedule properly." He pulled out another business card, different from the first. This one had an address printed on it. "And if you have any more trouble, any at all, you call that number and someone will handle it. Understood?" Claire took the card. Her fingers brushed his, and she felt an electric jolt at the contact. "I can't afford to owe you," she said quietly. "I already learned what happens when you owe dangerous people." "You don't owe me anything." Callahan's expression was unreadable. "But if you want to thank me, show up Monday. Work hard. Make Romano's the best restaurant in this city." His lips curved slightly. "And maybe have dinner with me sometime, when you're ready." Before Claire could respond, he stepped back, hands in his pockets. "Good night, Claire Morrison." "Good night, Mr. Callahan." "Marcus," he corrected. "Mr. Callahan is my father." He walked away, disappearing into the same shadows his men had vanished into. A moment later, Claire heard a car engine start, then fade into the distance. She stood alone in the parking lot, clutching 2 business cards, her mind reeling. What the hell had just happened? The weekend passed in a strange fog. Claire kept expecting Rick to show up, to prove that Callahan's protection wasn't real. Wasn't enough, but her apartment stayed quiet. Her phone stayed silent. It was almost worse than the threats had been, this waiting for the other shoe to drop. On Saturday, she received a text from an unknown number. Your mother's nursing home fees have been paid in full for the next year. MC. Claire stared at the message for a full minute, her emotions warring between gratitude, disbelief, and a creeping sense of obligation. He'd said she didn't owe him, but this was too much. She typed out 3 different responses and deleted them all. What did you say to something like this? How did you thank someone for something you never asked for but desperately needed? In the end, she just sent back, "Thank you." The response came immediately. "You're welcome. See you Monday." Monday arrived both too quickly and not quickly enough. Claire dressed carefully in the Romano's uniform, her stomach a knot of nerves. This was real now. She was really going to work at a restaurant owned by Marcus Callahan, really going to be part of his world in some small way. The dinner shift was different than Friday's chaos. Tony, the floor manager, seemed to know who she was now. He was professional but respectful, made sure she understood the procedures, introduced her properly to the kitchen staff. Gina kept shooting her worried looks, but didn't press for details. And Marcus was there. He didn't sit in the dining room this time. Instead, Claire caught glimpses of him throughout the night, talking to the chef in the kitchen, reviewing something in the office with Tony, standing near the bar with a phone to his ear. Every time she saw him, her pulse jumped. He was always in suits, she noticed. Expensive ones that fit him perfectly. The tattoos on his neck were visible, but not aggressive, more artistic than threatening. When he moved through the restaurant, people made room without being asked. Staff straightened up. Even customers seemed to sense something about him. Around 8 o'clock, he caught her eye and gestured toward the office. Claire's stomach flipped. She finished delivering drinks to table 9 and headed that way. The office was small but well-appointed. Marcus sat behind the desk, his jacket off, sleeves rolled up to reveal more tattoos on his forearms. Intricate designs, professional work. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." Claire sat, her hands folded in her lap. "How's your first real shift?" he asked. "Good. Everyone's been very helpful. Tony says you're a natural. Fast learner, good with customers." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "He wants to make you permanent on the evening crew. That work for you?" "Yes, thank you. And thank you for my mother. You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." His blue eyes studied her. "Has Delano contacted you?" "No, nothing." "He won't. He left the city Saturday morning. I made it clear that staying would be unhealthy for him." Marcus's tone was casual, but there was steel underneath. "His collection business has been absorbed by one of my operations. Anyone he was extorting is now free of their debts. That includes you." Claire processed this. "You put him out of business." "I removed a problem. That's what I do." "And the people who worked for him?" "Given the choice to work for me under proper terms or find other employment. Turns out most people prefer fair deals and steady pay to extortion and violence." He paused. "You seem troubled." "I'm trying to understand why you did all this. For me, a stranger." Marcus was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "You want the truth?" "Please. I saw something in you Friday night, something I recognized." He leaned forward, resting his arms on the desk. "You were terrified, but you were fighting anyway. You walked into danger to try to save yourself, even though you had no real plan. That's not common. Most people freeze or run. You improvised. I don't feel brave. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it." His gaze held hers. "And maybe I'm a sucker for a woman in genuine trouble. My mother was in a situation once, before she met my father. A bad man trying to control her life. My father helped her the way no one else would. I learned from him that power is meaningless if you don't use it to protect people who need it." This glimpse into his past surprised her. "Your mother, is she..." "She passed 5 years ago. Cancer." Something flickered in his eyes, grief carefully controlled. "But she taught me plenty before she went, including that women like you, women with courage and principle, are rare, worth protecting." Claire felt her cheeks warm. I'm not special. You're wrong. Marcus stood, came around the desk, leaned against it so he was closer to her. Not threatening, but close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and subtle. You're honest. You work hard. You protected your mother even when it put you at risk. And you looked me in the eye Friday night and told me the truth, even though you were scared. That's special, Claire. Her heart was beating too fast. This close, she could see the details of his face, the sharp line of his jaw, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the way his eyes seemed to see right through her. I still feel like I owe you, she said quietly. Then pay me back by having dinner with me. Not here, somewhere else. Somewhere we can talk without you working. He smiled slightly. I promise not to discuss business. Just two people getting to know each other. Claire knew she should say no. This was complicated, dangerous territory. He was her employer now, a criminal by any definition, someone from a world she didn't understand. But when she looked at him, she didn't see danger. She saw the man who'd stepped between her and Rick without hesitation, who'd paid for her mother's care without being asked, who'd given her a real job and safety when she had neither. Okay, she heard herself say. Dinner. Marcus's smile widened, genuine and warm in a way that transformed his whole face. Tomorrow night, I'll pick you up at 7. She gave him her address, then fled back to the floor before she could change her mind. Gina intercepted her immediately. What was that about? He asked me out. He what? Gina grabbed her arm, pulling her into a quiet corner. Claire, please tell me you said no. I said yes. Oh my God, you're insane. You're actually insane. Maybe she was, but for the first time in weeks, Claire felt something other than fear. She felt possibility. Tuesday evening, Claire spent entirely too long choosing an outfit. Nothing in her closet felt right for dinner with a mafia boss. Too casual, too formal, too cheap-looking. Finally, she settled on a simple black dress that Gina had left behind months ago. It fit well enough, elegant without trying too hard. Marcus arrived exactly at 7, driving a sleek black car that probably cost more than Claire had earned in the last 5 years. He got out to open her door. Actually got out, and came around like a proper gentleman. And the sight of him in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, no tie, made her mouth go dry. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you. You look nice too. His lips curved. Nice. I'll take it. The restaurant he chose was small and intimate, the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu, because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. The maitre d' greeted Marcus by name, led them to a private corner booth without being asked. Do you come here often? Claire asked once they were settled. Often enough that they know how I like things, but I haven't brought anyone here in a long time. Marcus poured wine for both of them from a bottle that had appeared without being ordered. I wanted somewhere we could talk privately. About what? About you. I know you're a server, that you have a mother in a nursing home, that your brother is an idiot who abandoned you to debt collectors. What I don't know is what you want. The question surprised her. Want? From life. What do you want, Claire? If circumstances were different, if you had no constraints, what would you choose? No one had asked her that in years. Claire thought about it while she sipped wine that was smoother and richer than anything she'd ever tasted. I wanted to be a teacher once, she said finally. I was in college for education, 2 years in. But then my dad died, and the medical bills. I had to drop out to work, support my mom. Then she got sick and needed the nursing home, and teaching became one of those dreams you put away. Why teaching? I like helping people learn. I like seeing that moment when something clicks for someone, when they understand something they didn't before. It feels important, you know? Like you're making a difference. Marcus nodded slowly. You still could. Finish your degree. I can't afford... I can. He held up a hand when she started to protest. Before you say you can't accept, think about it. You work for me now. I take care of my people. That includes education benefits if they want them. You could work days, take classes at night. Or work nights, classes during the day. Whatever works. Claire's throat tightened. Why do you keep doing this? Because I can. Because I want to. Marcus leaned forward. Because I meant what I said, Claire. You're special, and I'm interested in seeing what you become when you're not just surviving. The dinner passed in a blur of good food and better conversation. Marcus was surprisingly easy to talk to once the initial nervousness wore off. He asked questions, really listened to her answers, shared pieces of his own life. He'd grown up in the city, he told her. His father had been in the family business, his words, and Marcus had followed. But he was trying to do things differently where he could. Legitimate businesses mixed with the traditional operations. Protection rather than extortion. Fair deals rather than exploitation. I'm not a good man, he said at one point. Let's be clear about that. I've done things that would horrify you, but I try to have rules, lines I don't cross. Like? Women and children. They're off limits, always. Drugs, I don't touch. Too destructive. And anyone who works for me gets fair pay, good conditions, and protection. Loyalty goes both ways in my organization. And people who cross you? Claire asked quietly. Face consequences, but proportional ones. I'm not a sadist, Claire. I don't hurt people for fun. Only when necessary, and only as much as the situation requires. He met her eyes. Does that scare you? It should have, but somehow it didn't. It should, she admitted. But you saved me. You've been nothing but kind to me. So no, I'm not scared. You should be, at least a little. But he smiled when he said it. After dinner, Marcus drove her home, but walked her to her door like a proper date. Under the porch light of her apartment building, he stopped, hands in his pockets. I had a good time tonight, he said. Me too. Can I see you again? Not as your employer, as me. Claire knew this was the moment. The decision point. Say yes, and she was stepping fully into his world. Say no, and maybe she could keep things professional, safe. But safety was overrated, and she wanted to see him again. Yes. The smile that crossed his face was worth it. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her cheek. Good night, Claire. Good night, Marcus. He didn't kiss her. She was both relieved and disappointed, but as she watched him drive away, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The next few weeks developed a pattern. Claire worked evenings at Romano's, and Marcus appeared at least once per shift. Sometimes he had business in the office. Sometimes he sat at the bar with an espresso, reading something on his phone. Always he found a moment to talk to her. And they had dates. Real ones. Dinner. Walks through the city. Once a concert that she mentioned liking, and found tickets for mysteriously appearing. He was attentive without being overbearing. Interested without being intrusive. And slowly, Claire found herself falling. It terrified her. This wasn't a normal relationship. Marcus was still a criminal, still dangerous. Men in suits came and went from Romano's office having conversations she wasn't supposed to hear. Sometimes he disappeared for days on business, and she tried not to think too hard about what that meant. But he was also thoughtful. He remembered things she mentioned casually. He sent flowers to her mother's nursing home with a card signed, "From Claire," so her mother wouldn't ask questions. He introduced her to his inner circle, the men from that first night, who turned out to be brothers, Anthony and Vincent Callahan. You're good for him, Anthony told her one night when Marcus was in the office. I haven't seen him this light in years. Light? Happy, human. He forgets sometimes, gets too deep in the business. You remind him there's more to life. Anthony studied her. Don't hurt him, Claire. He acts tough, but people he cares about can actually hurt him. The idea that she could hurt Marcus Callahan seemed absurd, but the sincerity in Anthony's face made her nod. I won't. I promise. 6 weeks after that first night, Marcus took her to his house. Not his apartment in the city, but his real home in the hills outside town. It was beautiful, modern and sleek with huge windows overlooking the valley. They cooked dinner together, which consisted mostly of Claire cooking, while Marcus helped with what he called sous chef duties, and she called trying not to let him burn things. It was domestic and normal and perfect. Afterward, they sat on his balcony with wine, watching the city lights. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said. Claire's stomach tightened. Here it came. The other shoe. The revelation that would make this all come crashing down. "Okay," she said carefully. "I'm falling in love with you." Of all the things she'd expected, that wasn't it. Claire turned to stare at him. He was looking out at the city, his profile sharp in the darkness. "I know it's fast," he continued. "I know this situation is complicated, but I learned from my father that when you find something real, you don't waste time pretending otherwise. And this is real, Claire. What I feel for you." Her heart was hammering. "Marcus, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. Whatever you decide about us, about this, I want you to know that I'm in. Completely." He turned to face her. "I want you in my life, not just as someone I'm dating, but as my partner. My equal." "I'm a waitress, Marcus. She gestured vaguely. We're not equals. You're wrong." His intensity was almost overwhelming. "You're strong, brave, honest. You care about people. You make me want to be better than I am. That makes you exactly my equal." Claire's eyes burned with tears. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. "It terrifies me, but I am." Marcus reached out, cupped her face in his hands, and kissed her. It was nothing like she'd expected. Soft, gentle, asking rather than taking. She melted into it, her hands coming up to rest on his chest, feeling his heartbeat under her palms. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Stay tonight," he murmured. "Just sleep, nothing more. I just want you here." She stayed. 3 months into their relationship, things shifted. Claire arrived at work to find Romano's in chaos. Police cars outside, officers asking questions. Her heart stopped. Had something happened? Was Marcus okay? She found him in the office with 2 detectives, his expression calm but cold. When he saw her, something in his face softened. "Claire." "Good, you're here." He looked at the detectives. "This is Claire Morrison, one of my staff." "Claire, these detectives are investigating a robbery at one of my warehouses last night." "I was hoping to ask you some questions, Ms. Morrison," the older detective said. "You've been seeing Mr. Callahan socially, correct?" Ice flooded her veins. "Yes." "And did you see him last night between 9 and midnight?" She had. They'd had dinner at his place, watched a movie, fallen asleep on his couch. She'd left around 11:30. "Yes," she said firmly. "We were at his house all evening." The detective's expression suggested he thought she was lying. "You're certain about the time?" "Completely. I left at 11:30. Marcus was home the entire time I was there." "And before you arrived?" "He was cooking when I got there at 6:30. The food was partially prepared, so he'd clearly been home for a while before that." The questioning continued for another few minutes, but Claire didn't waver. She was telling the truth. Marcus had been with her. Whatever happened at that warehouse, he hadn't been involved directly. Finally, the detectives left, clearly frustrated. Marcus closed the office door and turned to her. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I told the truth." "I know, but you could have hedged, protected yourself. Instead, you put yourself on their radar as someone associated with me." He crossed to her. "That's not nothing, Claire. You were with me. I'm not going to lie about that." "No, but you could have refused to answer without a lawyer present. Could have stayed out of it entirely." His hands settled on her shoulders. "By speaking up, you've essentially declared yourself on my side. The police will remember that." Claire hadn't thought of it that way, but he was right. She'd just publicly aligned herself with Marcus in a way that couldn't be taken back. "I am on your side," she said. "Aren't I?" Something fierce and possessive flared in his eyes. He pulled her against him, kissed her hard and desperate in a way he never had before. "You're mine," he said against her lips. Tell me you're mine." "I'm yours," she breathed. That night, their relationship shifted from tentative to certain. Whatever lines they'd been dancing around vanished. This was real, permanent, the kind of connection that changed everything. The incident brought new complications. News that Marcus Callahan's girlfriend had alibied him for a crime spread through both legitimate and illegitimate circles. Some of Marcus's associates looked at her differently, with respect now, as someone clearly under his protection. Others, competitors and enemies, saw her as a target. "I need to increase your security," Marcus told her a few days later. They were at his house, which had become more home to her than her apartment lately. "Security?" "Someone to keep an eye on you, drive you places, make sure you're safe." "That seems excessive. Claire, people know about us now. They know you matter to me. That makes you a liability." His jaw tightened. "I've already had 2 different organizations make inquiries about you. Just questions, nothing threatening yet. But I'm not taking chances." The reality of his world crashed over her again. She wasn't just dating someone powerful. She was dating someone whose enemies might hurt her to get to him. "I could step back," she said quietly. "We could be more discreet." "No." The word was flat. Absolute. "I'm not hiding you. I'm not pretending you don't matter to me. Anyone who wants to threaten you will learn very quickly why that's a mistake. Marcus, I mean it." He pulled her close. "You're mine to protect now. Let me do it." In the end, she agreed to the security. A man named Frank, quiet and professional, started accompanying her places. It felt strange at first, having someone always nearby. But Frank was good at being unobtrusive, and gradually Claire adjusted. Months passed. Summer faded to fall. Claire enrolled in online classes, working toward finishing her degree. Marcus covered the tuition without blinking, called it an investment in his people. She still worked at Romano's, but fewer hours now, balancing work and school and time with Marcus. They fell into rhythms together. Sunday mornings were lazy breakfasts at his place. Wednesday nights were her cooking dinner for both of them. He attended her mother's birthday celebration at the nursing home, charming the staff and bringing an elaborate cake. She met his family, aunts and uncles and cousins, a sprawling Italian clan who welcomed her with food and questions and approval. It felt like a real relationship, like a real life, and Claire let herself believe it could last. The warning came on a Tuesday. Claire was at Romano's, finishing up her shift, when Anthony appeared looking grim. "Where's Marcus?" he asked without preamble. "Meeting at the construction site." "Why?" Anthony's expression tightened. "We have a problem. The Kozlov brothers are making moves. They grabbed one of our guys, sent him back with a message." Claire's blood went cold. She'd heard about the Kozlovs. Russian organization, brutal reputation. Marcus had mentioned them in passing as rivals who'd been testing boundaries lately. What kind of message? The kind that suggests they think we're vulnerable, that Marcus is distracted. Anthony's eyes met hers. "They mentioned you specifically, Claire. Said his pretty American girlfriend makes him soft." The floor seemed to tilt. "They're going to come after me. Marcus won't let that happen. But we're going into lockdown mode until this is resolved. Frank is going to take you to the safe house." "No." Anthony blinked. "What?" "No, I'm not hiding while Marcus deals with this alone. If I'm part of the problem, I'm part of the solution. Claire, you don't understand. These men don't play games. If they get their hands on you, then Marcus will burn their entire organization to the ground. I know that, but I also know running and hiding makes me look weak. Makes him look weak for protecting someone who can't handle his world." Claire straightened her spine. "I trust Marcus to keep me safe, but I'm not going to be a liability he has to stash away." Anthony stared at her for a long moment, then smiled slightly. "He's going to be pissed at me for not insisting. I'll tell him it was my choice." "Oh, he'll know that. You're as stubborn as he is." Anthony pulled out his phone. "But we're going to double your security, and you don't go anywhere without telling someone. Agreed?" "Agreed." When Marcus found out, he was indeed furious. They had their first real fight in his office at Romano's. Voices raised, both of them stubborn. "You should be at the safe house," he said for the third time. "I should be here, living my life, showing your enemies I'm not afraid of them." "This isn't about pride, Claire." "Yes, it is. It's about showing them that I'm not some weakness they can exploit, that I'm your partner, not your victim. And if something happens to you, if they hurt you because you refuse to be smart about this, then you deal with it. But I won't live in fear, Marcus. I did that with Rick. I'm not doing it again." The mention of Rick made him pause. His expression shifted from angry to something more complex. "That's different," he said, quieter now. "How?" "Both situations involve dangerous men who want to hurt me to get something. The only difference is that now I have you, and I trust you to handle it." Marcus stared at her, and she saw the moment he gave in. His shoulders relaxed incrementally. "You're going to be the death of me," he muttered. "But what a way to go." Despite the levity, the tension was real. Security increased everywhere. Romano's had additional men posted. Frank was joined by a second bodyguard. Marcus himself was rarely out of sight when she was around. And slowly, carefully, Marcus and his organization went to work. Claire didn't see most of it, but she heard things. Whispers about Kozlov operations being shut down, about shipments being intercepted, about key players suddenly deciding to relocate to other cities. Marcus moved through it all with cold efficiency, the charming man she knew replaced by someone harder, more dangerous. It was a reminder of who he really was, what he was capable of. 2 weeks into the conflict, Dmitry Kozlov himself reached out requesting a sit-down. Marcus took Claire with him. "Are you sure that's wise?" Anthony asked. "Very sure. I want him to see exactly who he threatened, and I want Claire to see how we handle things." The meeting was in a neutral location, an upscale club that served as Switzerland for various organizations. Dmitry was there with 2 of his brothers, all of them radiating controlled violence. Marcus walked in with Claire on his arm, dressed in a stunning red dress he'd bought her specifically for this. His message was clear. "This is mine. I'm not hiding her." "Callahan," Dmitry said, his accent thick. "And this must be the famous Claire." "Ms. Morrison," Marcus corrected coldly. "And yes, Claire, this is Dmitry Kozlov, the man whose organization has been harassing my operations." Claire met Dmitry's eyes steadily, refusing to show fear even though her heart was racing. "A pleasure," she said coolly. Dmitry smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You have nerve, bringing her here." "I have certainty," Marcus corrected. "Certainty that you understand if anything happens to her, I will dismantle everything you've built brick by brick. Your operations, your assets, your family, all of it." The temperature in the room dropped. Dmitry's brothers tensed. "That sounds like a threat," Dmitry said. "It's a promise. The same promise I'm making about any future interference in my business. You've tested boundaries. You've learned where they are. Now back off, or learn what happens when you cross them." The silence stretched. Then Dmitry laughed, genuine amusement in the sound. "You've changed, Callahan. Time was you could be reasoned with, made to see sense. I found something worth protecting. That changes a man's priorities." Marcus's hand settled on the small of Claire's back, possessive and protective. "Are we clear?" Another long moment. Then Dmitry nodded slowly. "Clear. We will pull back. No more trouble from us." His gaze shifted to Claire. "She must be very special." "She is." They left shortly after, terms agreed upon. In the car, Claire finally let herself shake. "That was terrifying," she said, "but you didn't show it. You were perfect." Marcus pulled her close. "Thank you for trusting me." "Always." That night at his house, Marcus proposed. They were on the balcony again, same spot as their first night there. He got down on one knee, pulled out a ring that probably cost more than her entire year's salary, and asked her to marry him. "I know this life isn't easy," he said. "I know what you're taking on, but I love you, Claire. I want you as my wife, my partner in everything. Will you marry me?" She was crying before he finished. Yes. God, yes. The ring slid onto her finger perfectly, a diamond that caught the moonlight. Marcus stood and kissed her deeply, thoroughly, in a way that promised forever. "I need to warn you," he said when they broke apart. "Being my wife means being part of my world completely. There's no going back from this. I don't want to go back. I want forward. With you." They set the wedding for spring. Small ceremony, immediate family and close friends only. Marcus wanted it traditional, formal. Claire just wanted it to be real. The months of planning were a whirlwind. Marcus's family embraced her fully now, his mother's sisters treating her like she'd always been one of them. Her own mother cried happy tears, thrilled to see her daughter in love. Even Gina, who'd been skeptical from the start, admitted that Marcus made Claire happier than she'd ever seen her. The wedding took place in a small church with roses everywhere, and Claire in a dress that made her feel like a princess. When Marcus saw her coming down the aisle, his expression transformed into something so tender it made her cry again. They exchanged vows that were traditional and heartfelt. When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," Marcus did so thoroughly enough to make several people laugh. At the reception, held at Romano's of course, Marcus stood to give a toast. "Most of you know I'm not a man of many words," he began, and several people chuckled. "But today I'm going to make an exception." He looked at Claire, and she felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. "6 months ago, I met a woman who was in trouble. She'd walked into danger trying to protect herself and the people she loved. She had no plan, no resources, no reason to think things would work out. But she tried anyway." He paused. "That courage, that determination, changed my life. Claire makes me want to be better than I am. She makes me believe in things I'd stopped believing in. And she loves me, despite knowing exactly who and what I am." Claire's eyes burned with tears. "So here's my promise to you, in front of everyone who matters to us. I will protect you, support you, love you for the rest of my life. You'll never face anything alone again. Whatever comes, we face it together. You're mine, and I'm yours. Forever." The room erupted in applause. Claire stood and kissed him, not caring about the audience. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too," he said back. "My wife." My wife. The word sent a thrill through her. They danced, ate cake, celebrated surrounded by family. As the night wound down, Marcus pulled her outside to the same parking lot where Rick had attacked her all those months ago. "Do you remember?" he asked softly. "How could I forget? That night changed everything. You changed everything." He wrapped his arms around her. "I bought this place to keep you safe. I never expected to fall in love with you, but I did, completely and irrevocably." Claire leaned back to look at him. "Do you ever regret it? Taking on my problems that night?" "Never. Not once." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Claire Callahan." Claire Callahan. Her new name. Her new life. "I love you," she said again because she couldn't say it enough. "I love you too. Always." They stood there in the parking lot where it all began, holding each other under the stars, and Claire felt nothing but gratitude. For that desperate night when she'd walked into danger. For the man who'd stepped between her and harm. For the love that had grown between them against all odds. She'd written poisoned on her hand that night. A last-ditch effort to warn someone, anyone, about Rick's threat. Marcus had seen it, had understood, had acted. And in saving her, he'd found something he hadn't known he needed. Now they had forever to explore what they'd become together. And Claire couldn't wait. The end came in the form of a beginning. 6 months into their marriage, Claire graduated with her teaching degree. Marcus was in the front row, cheering louder than anyone else. She started teaching at a local elementary school in the fall, finally pursuing the dream she'd put away. And at night, she came home to a man who loved her, protected her, and built a life with her that balanced both their worlds. It wasn't perfect. There were still dangers, still complications from Marcus's business, but they faced them together, partners in everything that mattered. 1 year after their wedding, Claire discovered she was pregnant. Marcus's reaction, pure joy mixed with instant protectiveness, made her laugh and cry at the same time. "I'm going to be a father," he kept saying, wonder in his voice. "You're going to be amazing," she told him. And he was. When their daughter was born, Marcus held her with such tenderness that Claire fell in love with him all over again. They named her Rose after Marcus's mother. She had Claire's blonde hair and Marcus's blue eyes, and a smile that owned her father completely from day one. Life wasn't what Claire had expected that desperate night when she'd walked into Romano's with no plan and no hope. It was better, richer, fuller. She'd found love in the last place she expected, and it had saved her in ways she hadn't known she needed saving. Sometimes when she saw Marcus playing with Rose, or when he kissed her goodbye before heading to deal with his business, or when he simply looked at her like she was his entire world, Claire remembered that scared woman in the parking lot, and she thanked her for being brave enough to try, for walking into danger despite her fear, because that moment of courage had led to this, a life filled with love, protection, and a partnership that made her stronger than she'd ever been alone. Marcus was right. She was special. But so was he. And together, they were everything.